Dalon Divine. Thank you everyone here, and we're about to break the colonel. Just before I break the colonel, I just want to make sure that we are on the same page with what the colonel symbolizes, and also the reason why we have to excuse ourselves when we try to break the colonel, because I'm going to switch to my Igbo in order to do the justice to the colonel. First in this room, we have some people who are Abalanze, who are titled men in various formats. There may be also women who have recognized titles, but in Igbo cosmology, the breaking of the kola nut goes to the eldest person in the room. So that means that automatically I may be the dinosaur in the room. So, so I crave your indulgence to switch. And first of all, in terms of the kola nut, when it comes to us, is a fruit that we use for communion, is a fruit that symbolizes unity. If I lift up this kola nut and I have something against any one of us here, I'm actually setting myself up. So I have to always recognize the sanctity of the kola nut, the communal value of the kola nut, and also the reason why when I lift it up to break it, I'm supposed to free everyone who I have something against. And as I'm breaking it, I'm also inviting everyone to do the same. So for those of us who dwell in anger or who dwell in frustration, we're supposed to set all that free, because to commune, we have to be free. So that's the fundamental Igbo cosmology of the kola nut. So when we break the kola nut, actually the numbers are very, very important. So the kola nut is supposed to be 5 pieces or 3 pieces. It's always in even numbers. So to make sure that I'm following the protocol, I'm going to transfer one kola nut to this plate. So I have 5 pieces of kola nut. And this is where my English gives way. I would also, like to preface a little comment after I, do the ceremonial of the kola nut. Ndị be anyị ọjị abịahụnụ. Daalụnụ. Onye wetala ọjị wetalụ ndụ. Ndị nze na ọzọ nke onye chi nyazelụ. Ndị ụmụ nwanyị ọmụọ ọmụnụ. Ụmụ nwoke igwe. Ọkwa na anyị weta ọjị, anyị asị nọ Chukwu abịama bụ onye anyị gbakọ n'okpuru ya. Ọ taa n'otu, anyị nwa taa n'ibe. Anyị na-ayọ Chukwu abịama ka o welu ngọzi ya wee chọba anyị mma. Ngọzi na be, ngọzi na bonu, ngọzi na bonu. Ife niile bụ ife unu na-elo bụ ezigbo ife. Chukwu ga-eme ka ọ baala unu. Yeah, I need to hear
You have
this.
to respond, he says, because he's praying, that's kind of response.
So he says that is the I went as you onye ọbụla bụ nwanne ya n'obi, ọbụna nwanne imekata ya ọnya, ọbụna nwanne imere ya ajọ efe, ọbụna oyi imere ya ajọ efe, anyị na-ayọ biko ka iwelu maka Chukwu tọrapụ onye afọ n'ọbụla. Anyị na-ayọ biko ka ebe anụnwa anyị nọ ka ọ bụla ebe anyị na-anabata ebele, na-anabata ịfụnanya, na-anabata ọganiru. Mgbakọ anyị gbakọ n'ebe anụnwa n'ụbọchị nke tata ka ọ bụla ife ga-abala anyị ulu, ka ọ bụla ife ga-edu anyị gaa n'iru, anyị wee na-ayọ Chukwu Olise bụlụ ụwa ka ọ gọzie ọjị anụnwa gọzie ekpere anyị bụ n'obi ma ka anyị lotere ma ka anyị na-elotere ka ọ lee etu niile anyị si wee bie etu anyị si wee bulie n'obi site n'afa Jesu Kristi onye nwe anyị. Daalụnụ. So I'm going to have to reach out to the Ndinze from different states. So one person would reach out to collect or touch the kola nut before I proceed. So in Anambra State, how many people are from different communities in Anambra? Just raise your hand. If you're from Onitsha, raise your hand. So we have 3 people from Onitsha. I don't need to. If you are from Abagana, raise your hand. So we have Abagana in the house. Which other town is here from Anambra State?
Ogidi, Oka.
Ogidi, Oka, then Nemochie. So, yeah, so we are going to crave your indulgence to have one person from Anambra State pick up the kola nut on behalf of the Abalanze and the titled men from Onitsha. Ochili? Who else in the house? Abagana. Okay, Imo State. Who is the title person from Imo State? Who is the oldest person from Imo State? Okay. So with the permission, I'll have you collect one colonel. Okay. Abia State. Abia State. So come over. You're going to touch the plate as a blessing. Okay. Okay. So Enugu State. Do we have Ebonyi State here? Ebonyi? Delta? The other states that identify themselves, I heard Ekiti State, Osun State. Huh? I already called Abia. Did I call Abia?
Yes, you did.
So, so I'm actually going to break the kola nut so that it gets to everyone. The first kola nut that was collected was for representation. Then for the communion, we're going to break this kola nut into pieces. And please, because you are part of the prayer here, you're going to accept the kola nut. You can take a nick of it, and that's it. But in communion, we want to make sure that this space is hallowed because you have made a promise. The promise is that you'll let go your anger, you'll let go your frustration and beef with anyone so that you can eat the kola nut as a symbol of our unity. That's very important. So you collect it, you can take a nick at it, you don't have to bite it all, but it's a symbol of your commitment to the community. Dalolo.
When Ezine brought the idea to me to do August meeting, I was very entertained, and I was like, let's make this happen. I just came back from her Africa Business Conference that she organized with the Africa Business Club, very successful events, and I wanted more of the Nigerians who are native in Baltimore to be a part, because I know, Hopkins that space, the network is very, very split. But a lot of Nigerians come to Hopkins to study. And we were like, okay, if we do this, we'll have panel. Who is good for the panel? So I just researched, I looked up on the internet. Two at the top Igbos in the DMV. Dr. Chukwu was the first one. I was me and Izine were very pleasure to have her immediately accept the invitation. And I did my research on her, and she does a lot of work on Igbo history. So, I thought it was best to have someone who's the chair of the Africana Studies Department at UMBC, a university that has a lot of Africans, to be able to come and really introduce us. And it turns out that, her daughter, I went to Hopkins with Chisom, and her daughter was actually the BSU president at Johns Hopkins. So you see the excellence flowing, through the blood. So without further ado.
I want to use this opportunity to thank Chijok and Adesina and their team for putting together this inaugural August meeting of the Igbo people. What I'm going to do here is just to highlight themes that would lead us to panel discussion. First of all, the question, who are the Igbo? The Igbo speaking people of southeastern Nigeria call their home in southeastern Nigeria. And of course, it's made up of a number of states, 5 states, which have been called based on the distribution of kola nuts, Anambra, Enugu, Abia, Imo, and the Ebonyi states. Now, the word Igbo represents the people and their language. The Igbo have over 300 village groups that live in southeastern Nigeria, and hundreds of dialects of Igbo language. And the language is a tone language. Very difficult to understand. A word can represent so many things. Aqua, and so forth. Just an example. Now, the Igbo inhabited southeastern Nigeria, comprising the 5 states I just mentioned, over 6,000 years ago. And they were able to develop political institutions and economic foundation. Igbo socio-political structures is primarily based on Republican political structure, where village groups identify and send representatives who represent them in village committees based on representation, participation, and consensus. Now, there are certain Igbo, pan-Igbo identity institutions and values that Igbo cherish and continue to transfer to young generation and generations to come. One of those is, of course, Igbo language. The language distinguishes the Igbo. Igbo values in terms of competition. The Igbo people are highly competitive. They are very, very enterprising. They believe in egalitarianism. They also believe in community, the well-being of the community. That enterprising, competitive spirit or values that the Igbo have and have continued to cherish have led them to so many places where we have Igbo diasporic communities. Now, the first force that led to the Igbo diaspora or establishment of Igbo diaspora communities was the transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade sent quite a number of Igbo, thousands, millions of Igbo people. A good number of them landed in the Chesapeake area of Maryland and Virginia. Others landed in Jamaica, in Belize, and other Caribbean countries, Caribbean nations and communities. Now, based on these Igbo values of competitive spirit, hard work, and community orientation, a good number of enslaved Igbo were able to distinguish themselves and made impact in various societies they found themselves. This included Igbo Kwenu, who was kidnapped at a very young age of 10 and passed through hands until he landed in Barbados, from Barbados to United States of the colonies, then to Jamaica and back to England, where he wrote a very important book called The Interesting Narrative of Igbo Kwenu. This book became the blueprint for the abolitionist movement in England in the 19th century. Others included Edward Wilmot Blyden, who became an educator, even an ambassador extraordinary in Liberia, and James Africanus Houghton, who became a medical doctor in Sierra Leone, and Reverend John Christopher Taylor, who was a missionary. He was of Igbo parentage in Sierra Leone, chose to carry out evangelization of the Igbo people, and of course, the role he played laid the foundation to the formal education in Eastern Nigeria or in Igbo society. He landed in Igboland in 1857 through the Church Missionary Society and was able to establish the first mission and subsequently schools. Then the Catholics and other missionary societies joined them. Through the activities of the missionaries in the establishment of schools, Igbo people became educated. And the first crop of Igbo, some of them served as priests, as missionaries, as interpreters, artisans, and so forth. Others also went into trade. We've been reminded earlier on that Igbo people were known for their enterprising spirit, for engagement in business and entrepreneurship. Among the early Igbo people who pursued formal education beyond secondary school level overseas were Nnamdi Azikiwe, who later became the first president of independent Nigeria. Nnamdi Azikiwe opened doors for other Igbo people, the people he termed the 8 Argonauts. These included prominent Nigerians and Igbo as Nwaforis. How many of you have heard of Nwaforis? Nwaforis, Mbono Jike, the boycott or boycottable king. That's what he was known for. Some professors, Ike Jana, Okala, and so forth. These prominent Igbo were the first Igbo to be educated in the United States. They laid the foundation upon which we stand. And it is important that we recognize them and the work they did, starting with Nnamdi Azikiwe, who came in the late 1920s, and the Argonauts, whom he opened doors for, who followed in the 1930s, 1940s. But the good thing is that these individuals went back to Nigeria to lead the nationalist movement that led to the independence of Nigeria. And now, of course, other Igbo elite championed the development and the study in Igbo language, the study of Igbo people, the standardization of Igbo language, and of course, prominent among them was Professor Kenneth Dike, who became the first African and the first Nigerian to serve as the Vice Chancellor of the first university of Nigeria, the University College of Ibadan. Now, colonialism, migration. Here I want to emphasize the role the British colonialism played in sharpening Igbo ethnic identity and consciousness. The British created administrative units. They also invested in infrastructural development, building roads, helping in urbanization, and leading to rural-urban migration, establishment of more schools, universities, social services and institutions like hospitals and so forth. But of course, as more openings were created, the Igbo, who lived in a very dense area, one of the densest areas in Africa, were pressed by scarcity of land. They had to migrate. So the British had to create opportunities for Igbo to migrate outside Igboland. And through such migrations, the Igbo began to create kinship networks. And these kinship networks led to hometown associations, which emphasize community development, awarding scholarships and so forth to Igbo people. The Igbo people love education. In fact, the Igbo are also known for their receptivity to change and novelty. That also helped to propel them to pursue any opportunities that were created during the colonial period. And of course, as they migrated and created this kinship network and hometown associations, they began to be more conscious of their Igbo-ness, of their Igbo identity. And of course, through those kinship networks, they were able to help themselves. That is connectivity, strengthening collectivity, in helping one another, and of course, in building their community. But of course, another thing that the British colonialism created, which I refer to as double-edged sword. It created avenues for development, but at the same time, it highlighted ethnic division. And because of the progressive nature of the Igbo, the fact that they left their homeland and migrated to other parts of Nigeria, and they were very enterprising, they became centers of attention to their host communities, who began to fear them. So that is the beginning of fear of Igbo domination that we would see led to the Nigeria-Biafra War. I want to touch on the politics of decolonization, especially in the 1950s, when political parties were created. The three major political parties, National Council of Nigerian Citizens, Northern People's Congress, and Action Group, towed ethnic line. National Council of Nigerian Citizens became identified with Nnamdi Azikiwe and the Igbo people. This politicization of political parties and ethnicization of politics helped to exacerbate ethnic consciousness and ethnic division among the Igbo. It is not surprising that in 1966, two military coups occurred, one in January and the other in July, and eventually led to the pogroms that targeted Igbo people, especially those living in northern part of the country. And of course, when Northerners began to kill Igbo people, they are human beings, they had to migrate back home. So there was influx of Igbo people living outside Igboland. And that created scarcity of resources, plus the fact that the Nigerian federal government and federal military government pursued starvation as a war tactic. They blocked the sea and the air so that relief materials were difficult to be flown into Igboland. The problem was, or the outcome was, of course, the starvation to death of many Igbo people, including children, as you can see in these images. The war also strengthened Igbo community, Igbo consciousness, and Igbo identity. Some Igbo used the opportunity created by the war to leave the country and further created more Igbo communities in the diaspora. Now, in post-war policy of reconstruction, rehabilitation, and reconciliation, all I can say is that the Igbo survived because of their strength, because of their unity, because of their collective effort, not because of the federal policy of the 3 R's. Now, in terms of epochs of Igbo migrations, how we ended up here as part of the Igbo diaspora, we can count the era of the slave trade, which I've mentioned, the 1920s, 1930s, of the earliest Igbo scholars like Nnamdi Azikiwe and Bono Ojika and co. But of course, after that, after the end of the war, many Igbo migrated because of economic crisis. The earliest came to pursue education. The 3rd generation, if we have to include those who migrated because of the transatlantic slave trade, came because of education and economic opportunities. And of course, in the diaspora, prominent Igbo and their children are thriving, are doing very well, using those Igbo values, pursuing education, and engaging in different walks of life while maintaining their Igbo identity. And these Igbo identities can be seen in us. Of the attire we are wearing, Igbo hometown associations or ethnic cultural organizations, Igbo youth organizations such as Igbo Unite, Igbo language instructions. I understand quite a number of them, about 2 or 3 of them that I'm aware of are going on around Baltimore, DC corridor. Some churches allow Igbo people to organize their services in Igbo language. Then there is an Igbo village. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Igbo village in Canton, Virginia. These pictures are taken from that village. The Igbo in diaspora tried to replicate typical Igbo village structures. And of course, Igbo youth in diaspora are dancing in this picture. And of course, through intra Igbo marriages, Nollywood movies, the Igbo have continued to nurture and maintain their identity. So, in concluding remarks, the Igbo values of competitive, enterprising skills, their believe in collective well-being, their belief in egalitarianism, and their hard work have continued to help them as a group and also to maintain their identity, not only in their home country of Nigeria, but also in different diasporic communities they found themselves. Thank you.
Okay, I was loud. I'm about to introduce the first part of the stuff. So thank you, Dr. Chukwu, for that introduction. I feel like I was in history class about my own history, so it hit very home. So this first part is called Here We Go Again. Neocolonialism, media, banks, and governments. Nigerians' attempts at both independence in 1966 and reconstruction following the Civil War saw the perpetuation of the same oppression of civil liberties that gave birth to such revolutions. How are we relieving the pedagogy of the oppressed, and what ways can we reclaim the penmanship of our narrative? So I'd like to call back up Dr. Chukwu. Ime Umo. So if you don't know Ime, you have probably seen his work before. Masterclass in drone work, especially when it comes to the tourism in Baltimore City and also life back home. So you travel back and forth, and I'm sure you're taking a drone with you. So if you have what's your Instagram again? Your Instagram? Just Ime Umo. Please follow him, Ime Umo. You will not regret looking at his work. And I'm just very, very glad to have him here because I know he's always wanted to, speak on a panel with his own king in the front. And one of the very few men I've met, Igbo, grew up in Baltimore and still stands his roots. So, very, very glad to have you here. Yes, sir. The next panelist, Deli Okafor. So, most of you should know Delhi, we are together. But while we were still playing child's play, Delhi went, and with the big politicians. So just very, very glad to have her on this panel from her busy schedule and be able to tell us, how we can get engaged in the political process. I expect very, very big things from her as the regional director for the Comptroller's Office. Is Mr. Eze here? Okay, that was my hair. What about Vincent? Vincent's not here. Okay. So, we'll start the panel. And first, I'm just gonna let the panelists, introduce themselves. Tell us why you wanted to be here, and then a bit about your story.
Once more, I'm Gloria Chukwu. I teach at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I came to the United States 1997. It's like I'm the daughter of the soil, but I'm not. Because no matter how long we spend here, we remain Nigerians and Igbo. I am intrigued, or I was, when I got an invitation. This is the beginning of the semester. And for anybody who is familiar with the university system here, it is not an easy time to live. And being the chair of a small department, it is even more difficult. But when I saw the invitation, Igbo Youth putting together August meeting, or August event, I said I cannot miss this opportunity to be with my people and also encouraging, exposing what we do and who we are in Baltimore, Washington corridor. So I am here to talk about questions that may be posed to the panelists, but of course to go back to the slide presentation that I just gave to emphasize the importance of education. Education is an equalizer. I'm sure many of us may not be here if not for education. And of course, the support from our community. It could be our parents, it could be extended family. We should not forget where we come from. It has been part of the virtue of Igbo people, even during the colonial period, when schools were established. Igbo people believe that the five fingers are not the same. And therefore, if one can afford to assist the other, that person should step up. And so they began to contribute and award scholarships to attend primary schools and secondary schools. We're not talking of university education at the earliest stages. But of course, with time, Igbo people began to attend higher institutions of learning and even going overseas to pursue that endeavor. So, and I'm very, very happy and proud of what our Igbo youth have done in the diaspora. Once in a while I read that this Igbo young man or young woman is an award winner at graduation of valedictorian during convocation and so forth. That is a demonstration of who we are, the hardworking people who are not waiting on anybody to give us handouts. We pursue what we want with all seriousness, and that is why we're here. I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward for more questions as the moderator directs. Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Emil Mo. And just thank you again. Thank you so much for having me and just to be a part of this conversation. Even just to be here in this room and look out into the crowd and see myself represented, our culture represented in 2025 is an absolute blessing. So thank you again for seeing it fit to have me a part of this conversation. You can probably tell by my accent that I was actually born in Baltimore. My dad is from Innuagural, my mom is actually from Baltimore, Maryland. They met at Morgan State and they had three beautiful kids. I'm one of them. Ever since I was about 5 years old, even being born in Baltimore, you know, my dad always made sure that we knew where we were from. Even though we were, you know, lived in Baltimore, went to school here, and even my mom and dad working, he always wanted to make sure that we knew where we were from. So we were very fortunate that we were able to start traveling home to Innuagural. I think I was 5 years old the first time I went home. And it was from that point, even from a young boy, I started to see just the differences between being home in Innuagural and Nigeria and then coming back to Baltimore. And I realized a lot of things, but one of the most important things was how much I appreciated Baltimore when I was there and how much I appreciated Nigeria when I was back in Baltimore. And fast forward, I actually graduated from UMBC in 2010. And after that, honestly, I did everything my parents wanted me to do. You know, I went to school, I got a good job with, and I had a chance to work with some really great companies. You know, I worked here in Baltimore, I was a project management consultant. I graduated an information systems degree. Started working as a project manager, as a consultant, eventually moved to Seattle, worked for Expedia. Then I had a chance, and then I actually worked in Silicon Valley at Facebook as a technical project manager. But there was always this creative calling in I always had a camera, but you know, growing up in a Nigerian household, you have a camera, like, what are you talking about? You know, I didn't come here for you to be an artist. So, but I did everything I wanted my parents wanted me to do. You know, I got a degree, I got a good job, and I started my career, but there was always something like itching me in the back of my mind. And that was creativity. You know, I always had this camera, but they didn't make it seem like it was a real possibility to make it a career. And it wasn't until, I call it a soft retirement, but I did a soft retirement in 2018. I left Facebook, I put all my things in storage, and I picked up my camera, I picked up a drone, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna travel the world for 3 months, and I'll come back and get a job. And actually, so I had a job lined up at Google before I left, and I think it took me about 1 month of just being free and being able to travel the world that I discovered that, you know, this was my real passion. This is something that made me happy. And one of the biggest influences in that is the first, I would say 3 or 4 weeks, the first place I went from California was to Aquarium. I just wanted to, you know, see my dad, spend some time with my family. And I realized that, you know, I started sharing my work online and on Instagram and on Facebook, and I just started getting so much engagement and comments of people who may know Nigeria, but may not have seen Aquarium. And people were saying, like, is this Miami? Is this, you know, where's this, you know, beautiful place? And I was like, you know, this is my home. This is a quiet room. And I realized that that was a way for me to tell my story. That was a way for me to connect with the diaspora, whether it be Black Americans or diasporans in, you know, Colombia, all over the world. But it was a way for me to be able to communicate where I was from, and to also tell my story. So I continued to do that. Within a year of me, you know, leaving Facebook and traveling the world, starting in Nigeria, had a chance to go to, you know, Santorini, Greece, South Africa, just all over the world. I actually ended the year shooting on stage with Burna Boy in Lagos, Nigeria, within a year. And at that point, I realized I could make this a career. You know, I could make this a career, and you know, I was so happy, so excited. And of course, in 2020. The pandemic came and my business just completely just disappeared. So I came back to Baltimore and I realized that, you know, within this past year, I developed this skill of storytelling, being able to connect people with my work. And I said, I wonder if I could do the same thing in Baltimore. Even though we're on lockdown, I could still explore my city and you know, just show people a different side of Baltimore. And everybody's in here knows that if you talk to somebody about Nigeria or going to Nigeria here in the US, sometimes it's not typically positive things like, oh, is it dangerous? Is it this? Is it that? And I realized when I was traveling, people say the same thing about Baltimore. You know what I mean? Like, hey, is Baltimore dangerous? Is Baltimore this? So I realized that as a kid, you know, growing up in Baltimore, being Nigerian, I actually had the ability to tell 2 different stories. One about Nigeria to my, I guess, my Western audience, and then for my family and friends back home, I can actually show them a different side of Baltimore, the Baltimore that I see. And I've just been so blessed to be able to continue to do that for the past 4 or 5 years, telling stories. I mean, as they mentioned, you know, my work really focuses on tourism and hospitality. So really using storytelling, drones, video production, to really change the way people think about storytelling. So I've had the chance to work with Nigerian Soccer Federation, the Truce to Calm Foundation, NBA Africa, and on this side I've had a chance to work with Visit Baltimore, Google, Adobe. So it's just really been a blessing. I think the moral of this story is it's not just the camera, you know, it's not just the tool, it's how you use it. And I chose to use my voice, not just as a content creator or storyteller, but someone, a son of the soil, you know, someone who grew up in the West but has a deep connection to Nigeria and Aquarium. And I'm just letting my passion lead me at this point. And you asked the question, why am I here? I'm here to continue to tell this story. Whether you are, you know, you have your full-time job, or maybe you have a camera and, you know, sitting around, but it's just opened so many doors for me just to be able to tell my story and embracing that story as a son of the soil. And I'm here to be able to connect and build and I'm just really happy to be here today, and thank you for having me.
That was really beautifully said. So good evening again, everyone. My name is Deli Okafor. My full name is Ifechukwu Deli, but people call me Deli for short. And how did I get here? So like I said, I was born and raised in Baltimore, and I feel like I had a really unique experience, well, unique to people who I meet like outside of Baltimore. But the high school I went to was Perry Hall High School, and it was filled with so many Nigerians. I see a couple of my classmates in the room right now. And because of that experience, I felt like the Nigerian culture was very enriched in me, you know? I'd see my classmates eating, you know, fufu and ugusi soup at school, and you know, that was my normal for me. And it wasn't until I started like, you know, going to college that I realized, oh, not everyone grew up in like the experience that I had. And as I graduated from college and got, you know, more exposed to the world, I feel like my Nigerian identity, it's not something that I necessarily led with, because I started, you know, becoming a little bit more Americanized, especially in the fields that I entered, which is communications and politics. And that led me to seek mentorship in different ways, just because I didn't know that many Nigerians in those fields. So it led me to doing a lot of networking, and I realized the people that I'm talking to don't have the same experiences as me. The experience that a white man gives me isn't something that's going to help me, because I have different identities that I hold. So I've been really fortunate to meet some Nigerians by doing a lot of networking, which has helped me get to where I am today. And in the back of my head, I've always craved spaces to meet other Nigerians, because even by talking to people in this room, people have said, hey, I'm the only Nigerian in my office, but coming here, I've realized, oh, there are more Nigerians working in the city and more Nigerians working in the state. And I feel like it's really important that we bring our collective experiences together, because that really shows outside people that, you know, there are Nigerians here making waves in different fields. So one example that could really comes to mind is I'm an organizer in the Democratic Party, and I've done organizing for, like, for example, Asians for Harris, or, you know, white moms for Harris. You know, there are all those groups coming around, and there wasn't really a distinct voice for Africans for Harris or Nigerians for Harris, even though there's so many in Baltimore and Maryland. So I was able to like form a group called Africans in Diaspora for Harris Bowls, which was an amazing effort. We ended up raising like $15,000 for our campaign, which we donated to the campaign. And our whole goal was that, you know, we want to show that there are Africans here so that they can start to prioritize our policies and our issues when they make decisions at the national level. And while I'm in that group, I'm thinking, man, it's great that Africans are coming together, but Nigerians as a whole, we have our own plights. I don't think it should be looped in, you know what I mean? So since then, I've been looking for spaces, and I'm glad that Chijoke and Ezra and everyone else has organized a space so that we can come together and really start to mobilize so that we can make our voices heard. So that's pretty much why I'm here. Thank you for putting this together. And most importantly, I feel like that starts by figuring out like where we came from. So I'm really glad that I got to watch your presentation, because I learned so much. Most of my Nigerian knowledge has come from my parents, so it was good to hear like another objective view and really understand the detailed history. Because I feel like we can only go forward if we understand the past and understand what we can do to make systems better. So I'm really excited to sit on this panel, learn from you guys, and figure out a new path forward.
Thank you, Deli. You stole the second question off my tongue. But so we're gonna, you know, get there and get to business, because the real business is we have history, we have media, we have governments. How do you feel like in the spaces that you're in, they use the culture? The culture is used. It could be appropriated, whatever, but it's used, and we don't necessarily see the dividends, or there's a base for us, and we're not taking advantage. And so building off of some of the things that Delia talked about in your respective industries, you know, what are some insights to that, and how can we address that, and how do you feel like is a good stepping point for those that, you know, don't have the same experience that you have, what's a good stepping point?
Okay, as a university professor, I meet a lot of Nigerian students, many of them Igbo. There is Igbo African Students Association, but 3 years ago, time runs, Nigerian graduate students formed Nigerian Graduate Students Association and invited me to serve as their faculty mentor. I've been doing my best whenever they invite me to talk about challenges that graduate students face in the United States and opportunities within the campus, resources that they can explore to mitigate those challenges that they face as foreign students. We also, in my department, African Studies department, we have a number of initiatives, some of them that were launched when I became chair of the department 9 years ago. We established what we call Taste of Africa, which was established to commemorate the different food cuisine of West Africa, and of course talk about Black History Month. Is always or was always held in the month of March. But of course, when COVID hit, it affected a number of issues. But of course, when we were able to organize Taste of Africa, I've always invited a Nigerian to cater for the event to introduce UMBC community to African food. Of course, when we talk about West African food, there's nothing, an event that will take place without jollof rice. And of course, goat meat, and of course, fish and other things. So, and many students for the first time who have not heard about West Africa or have not heard about African Studies as a department, use that opportunity to encounter West Africa, encounter African people. And of course, African Students Association, there was a time a few years ago when I served as the faculty mentor, and I always emphasize the fact that they should not forget their identity and where they came from, whether they are from West Africa or East Africa or Southern Africa. They should always remember their origin, their heritage. We also have an event at the Boys Annual Lecture. We use that occasion to invite prominent scholars and activists among African American and Africans to come to campus to give either a lecture or a presentation through such lecture series, which is the longest academic lecture series on campus. Have featured a number of Nigerians and some Igbo people, and I deliberately invited those scholars to campus to talk about our people, our heritage, where we came from, what we do here, and where we want to be as we navigate the challenges of American society. And so, and of course, as a professor, I attend international conferences, and of course, national conferences where I talk about our people. That's what I do. I research about our people, I write about our people. And so I believe individually, we should leverage what we have, whether knowledge or skills. I'm so happy to meet young people that are doing wonderful things, using the camera to break and reach people, doors and boundaries that they might not have been able to do without the camera and of course, the internet. And of course, it is also important that we become politically conscious. Other parts of the world, or other communities in the United States are really doing very well. But of course, I know among the Yoruba, I'm glad we have two Yoruba here, they are doing far more better in terms of political mobilization, but we need collective effort of Nigerians, of Igbo, to be politically engaged and be part of what our sister is doing. I also understand, I don't know where I had that Chijioke is up to something. And so this is an opportunity for us to use our various networks and communities to see ways that we can help him and others with similar vision or ambition succeed. So what I'm saying in essence is, whatever position we occupy, whatever space we occupy, it is important that we be conscious of where we come from and be able to show who we are proudly, either through speaking Igbo. I've met a number of Igbo people in gas stations because they were speaking Igbo. And I said, oh, Inasu, you are Igbo. So through that, I came to connect with them. So we should be able to tell our story, show who we are, and through that process, we should be able to connect better and help one another better. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question again?
Hello. So for you two, I'll be very, very specific because Deli, you kind of already answered the question. But I would say we saw this recent election. And I know different Nigerians had mixed reviews. I don't know how they feel now, but I know at first they had mixed reviews. And the next election, you know, if we don't become a dictatorship, is in 2028.
Well, midterms are next year, and then presidential is 2028.
So tell us, what do we need to do so we can do better for this next time?
What do we need to do? Well, I think I want to start with how did we get here. I had a lot of discussions with different, Nigerians in my age group, and, half are very progressive and half were very, I like Trump. He's a strong individual. He really knows how to command a room. And conversations like that really got me thinking, why do they think like this? What's causing that? And it kind of, in my research, it kind of connected back to the topic of this panel on neo-nationalism, which is when, people, essentially where people are kind of stuck operating in structures that are a bit outdated. And that's when it clicked to me. I feel like, people who had that impression of, oh, we like Trump, they had that because it reminded them of back home. And they're bringing those mindsets into America, even though that's not really where we were at that time, at least. So for me, I think that it's really important that we start educating people on, hey, we're in America. These are the rights we have. You were able to come to America because, people believe in having diversity of thought and making, the world more, our country a more diverse place. You got in here, you were able to take advantage of that, so don't forget that's why you were able to come here, you know what I mean? So educating people on that and making sure that people are educated on policies, on the national level, but also with policies that affect them at a local level. So hey, So maybe having conversations with people that you know that are able to use benefits like SNAP and Medicare and things like that, educating them like, hey, if you don't vote this way, all that is gonna get taken away, and then what will you do? We're living your life in Nigeria back here again, so what's the point of immigrating over here? So just having those frank conversations so that people really understand what's at stake, like, don't vote on personality, vote on policies. So just educating on them on that, I feel like that will prevent us from, well, that will encourage us to make the right choice in future elections.
And then, Ime, I love how you talked about, the storytelling you do, not just for back home in Nigeria, but also in Baltimore. And I wanted you to expand on that because, Pan-African nationalism that exists, but even a lot of us who are divided, Africans, African Americans, people will remember ringing through their ear, oh, African booty scratcher, while they see the same African Americans now dancing to Davido. But you have to be humble, and also they are brethren. And so I want you to expand upon the ways in which not only do you do both, but doing both amplifies each other, so that we can look at other ways we can successfully go through our own identity formation, claiming our culture back home and claiming the land and our brethren. Yeah.
That's a good question. For me, I'm trying to tell stories for, the kid I was, the 6-year-old, who I was, because, I had this really unique name. I was growing up in Baltimore while everybody else was playing football and basketball, I was playing soccer. And while everybody was bringing, Lunchables to school, I was, bringing afang soup and, Eddie Kaikong soup. So, we live in a digital world today, and the way I look at video is the most efficient way to get the most information across in the shortest amount of time. So by me, living in Baltimore, but also and I also live in Lagos. I live in Lagos, 3-4 months out the year. So I'm very, how do I say, I'm in the streets, you know what I mean? I'm really in Baltimore. I'm working with, Visit Baltimore, tourism boards, different neighborhoods. And I'm also in Lekki, and I'm also in VI. I'm also, on the mainland in Ikeja. I just took a trip to Northern Africa. One of the reasons because I know how much people have negative things to say about the North, especially, in the past decade. And I'm one of those people, I'm one of those storytellers and adventurers, I gotta go see it myself. I know that people are saying all this about the North isn't safe, but when I went up there, quite honestly, I got more love in the North than I got, in Lagos. And I was actually shocked and surprised. So I think it's, the storytelling it's given me that ability to open up perspectives. And as we talk about, our brothers and sisters here in, in America and our brothers and sisters in Nigeria, it's just, the more stories I can tell to open people's minds, to change perspectives of, what reality really is, in combination with the fact that we live in this very digital world where we can learn anything online these days. I just try to capitalize on that. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but as we were talking about the two different audiences, that's what came to mind.
And I just want to piggyback off of that and say I feel like the work you do does a lot to reclaim the narrative of what people perceive Nigeria and our different communities to be. That's really important because people get to see it, but I feel like as a whole, it would be great if we took it a step further and really, got to know people back there to see what they're going through and what their experiences are. Because like you said, that you go there to see yourself, you exist over there. So it would be great to understand what they are experiencing and what we can learn from them and what they can learn from us so that we can continue to grow on both sides.
Yeah, that's the reason. It's, we can get caught up in just thinking things are such a certain way, but to be there, to be on ground, it's just a totally different perspective. And I'm choosing to, whether it's a cinema camera or even my cell phone, to be able to tell that story. You know, growing up, you know, we were fortunate enough to have 2 passports. And my dad told us, hey, if you got 2 passports, that means you gotta have a business in both countries. You gotta, you know, start your business in the US, you know, go start a business in Nigeria. So I think growing up, we just knew to use that to our advantage, you know, not just as a place to go and see and travel, but, you know, to be able to learn. And please, doing business in Nigeria is it's very difficult. But there's a lot of lessons, you know, that I've learned, and that's actually made me a better business person here in the United States. So, but yeah, perspective is everything, and you know, I choose to use, you know, whether it be a cell phone, a camera, or my drone to be able to change and shift that perspective.
Okay, so I'm running behind on time. Are there any questions for the panelists? Any questions? Double Chief.
I mean, it's not really a question. I was just like, I'm reading the thing and like, it's not correlated to what the question that you asked here. So like, how we bring again like Igbo culture into what you guys were just discussing. The no offense, ever just tell them like the different fields and everything that they're doing at Trump. I was like, Trump and Igbo, where's the correlation?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I'm from Akwa Ibom. Yeah, I'm a BBO, so, and maybe it's a foundation for, you know, people in the crowd to be able to take what I'm saying and maybe apply it to what you're doing. But, you know, for my culture, you know, I realized that a lot of, even people that were, you know, in the United States really didn't have a connection to BBO cultures. So, you know, I was using my storytelling, using videos, you know, just using perspective to be able to connect with them. So, I mean, that's my perspective. And, you know, when I think about my culture, I think about so many people that just don't know. And maybe you can keep me honest, but there's not a lot of the BBO books in history that I could even actually find. So, you know, as a traveler, as a creator, as a storyteller, that's really motivated me to go back home and learn it for myself, and then be able to share that on my, you know, with my community on my channels. But quite honestly, I'm interested in learning more about, you know, Igbo culture as well.
Good evening. Thank you for your responses. I'm definitely very grateful. And I guess what I'm thinking about, as we've discussed a bit of history, creativity, politics, policy, and obviously the cultural tie of being from somewhere, right, in that community. I was thinking about what advice would you give to the youth in any given diaspora, whether it be Ibibio or Igbo, you know, or Yoruba, to mobilize ourselves and help each other stretch, learn, grow, gain new skills, learn more about our history, understand how to be better storytellers, understand the connection and relevance of politics and policy in our everyday lives, especially now, right? What advice would you guys give us, youth, trying to organize and mobilize ourselves so that we can rise in this kind of new spirit of really bridging continent and diaspora and mobilizing and taking ourselves to the next level?
Thank you. I think I emphasize some of the ways Igbo youth in the diaspora could embrace, nurture, and exude Igbo culture. I mentioned Igbo youth organizations. Many of them, if not all of them, are online. You can type Google Igbo youth and connect with them. There is one that started over 10, 15 years ago, Igbo Youth Unite. They have branches in many states in this country. I also referenced Igbo Services services in Igbo, Christian services in Igbo language. In fact, not too far from here, the cathedral, Cathedral of Incarnation, Anglican, they have Igbo service every first and third Sundays in a month. I don't know if the Catholic have similar, I think they do. So those are avenues for our children, for our youth, to learn Igbo language, which is the beginning, and also Igbo culture, mode of dressing, and take advantage of opportunities, maybe hometown or ethnic organizations that have branches in different states and cities. If you hear about them, attend. I'm happy to see non-Igbo people here who heard about this event and attended to learn, to know what is going on. So we should be curious, curious-minded in seeking out avenues where Igbo people gather. Because when Igbo people gather, you learn. I so much admire the ritual presentation of Igbo kola nuts by Dr. Okay, I think it's your dad. Okay. Yeah, I was moved. So you learn when Igbo people gather, and it is important to take advantage of all those forums. I'm also aware that there are Igbo language classes being organized in some cities across the United States. Some of them online, you can Google them and enroll. I'm one of those parents who didn't do a great job in teaching my daughter Igbo language, but she does speak a little, but not deep Igbo language. And so these are avenues, and of course you can pick Igbo dictionary conversion online that you can read, or if it requires you to buy it through Amazon, you can buy language translation, English, Igbo translation. These are avenues that Igbo youth, especially those of you who were born here or outside Igboland, to learn about the people. And of course, more importantly, instead of spending hard-earned dollars visiting European and Asian countries, I will encourage you to visit Igboland and immerse yourself in Igbo culture. Interact, that's the best way to learn about the people. So those are pieces of advice that I have.
Yeah, and I think you really covered like basically what I wanted to cover. But I would take it a step further and be like, okay, I feel like you're doing it already. You have us all gathered in one space, and hopefully this lays a foundation for us to connect in the future as well. Like I know October 1st, it's like Nigerian Independence Day. Hopefully we have an event for that. And we continue to meet, and I feel like the more people that come together, the more we'll be able to like separate into different sections. Maybe we can start like a mentorship program for people that want to go into tech or go into politics so that they can get advice from first generation people who have had to like navigate that themselves. I think my one regret from like the election cycle last year was that I never held like a Nigerian meeting for all of us to come together so that I could explain the policies. But it was my first time doing it, and I didn't know how to do it, and I also didn't have like a mentor who would call me back to like, give me guidance on how to do that. So personally, I know that's something that I want to do in the future as we get ready for future elections. And I just hope that we can all stay together, and I hope that each and every one of us is really intentional about mentoring people that come behind us, by finding mentors who are like in college or in high school and being like, hey, I'm here, if you need help, I'll write a letter of recommendation for you. I will donate money towards you applying to like a grad school program. Because I know for me, since I didn't have a lot of mentors, I'm very intentional about supporting, especially young women who are coming after me and being like, hey, apply for this internship, or just really creating opportunities so that we can continue to create community together.
Beautifully said. I was just thinking, as much as I talk about the digital world, like if I'm giving youth, any advice on how to stay connected, as much as I talk about digital presence, and yes, you can go on YouTube and learn, and being in the room, being in this room, I really can't speak to how valuable this is. Just being in the room and taking advantage of that. You may know some people in this room, you may not know some people, but making sure you introduce yourself. I know for me, we have a diaspora organization called Akisan, and we have an annual convention every year, but I remember I started probably going there around like 10, 11, 12 years old, but those are friends that I made, at 10, 11 that I still have today. And even in Akisan, when I started printing my drone work, those are some of my first customers that supported my business. So I cannot stress enough, digital is fine, make your connections, but if there ever is an opportunity to be in the room, please take advantage of that. And it doesn't have to be 50 people, it could be 12 people, or it could be, a way, you meet up with, some friends every 2 or 3 weeks just to talk. One of the things that I'm still learning the BBO language, and I have the books, I'm on YouTube, but one of the things I realized is, when I went home, I had to make some friends, because when you speak the language, it's different than reading the language and trying to pronounce, especially when you grow up with, learning English in the US and trying to read a book and then pronounce, but, making friends or just calling up my cousins to just say, hey, like, don't speak to me in English, just, I want to speak in a BBO. So, but that just goes to being in the room, making friends, and then just stay connected. You know what I mean? Just stay connected. I'm so grateful for UMBC because prior to that, I really didn't lead forward. I think you said earlier with, talking about, being Nigerian, but once I got to UMBC and I had a chance to meet other Nigerians, it just made me feel so much more embraced. So I can't really stress community enough. It's in our culture as Nigerians to convene and come together like this. So it sounds easier said than done, but yeah, just take advantage of those opportunities to be in the same room, even in this digital age.
I would like to invite Ezine to congratulate our panelists.
I just want to say a very big thank you to all our panelists. I really want to thank Ime. He's supposed to travel to Nigeria. He has a flight actually tonight to Nigeria, but he was like, I'm going to make it here. So please, can we just give him a round of applause? And, we just have a very, just to appreciate our panelists, we just want to present this, certificate of recognition. Each and every panel that is speaking today have, in some sort of way represented Nigeria and also the Igbo community in a very great way in Baltimore. And for the Igbo Kwenu community, we are very intentional about celebrating them as trailblazers. So please join me as we, recognize them on this. So let's call on Amy. Thank you, Amy. Professor Gloria. And Jerry will come. Have a picture together.
Taking the front in capitalism's driving force, science, technology, and entrepreneurship. Advancements in technology have spurred an ever-growing conflated dependence between big business and research. What are missing perspectives to how industry really works in the contemporary, and what are ways for the diaspora into the professional pipeline of preponderance? So first, I would like to call Jay Nwaju. So Jay is big name in Baltimore. Big name in Baltimore, and I'm so excited to have him here out of his busy schedule to come and share some words with us. And please, this time, have questions or please, these are very intelligent people. They're very well connected, and the biggest part of here is being able to use them as a springboard into our own professional success. Because if we succeed, that's success for the culture. Next, my uncle Chijioke Bennett. So I forgot, Jay works in entrepreneurship. He is the head of Innovation Works and also Ignite Capital. So Innovation Works, they pretty much help entrepreneurs throughout Baltimore City find housing, find resources, find success, find investors. And he has a lot on his plate because it's a very big responsibility. And he also has the Ignite Capital that helps the fundraising process for Innovation Works. And my uncle Chijioke, he is a director of a health science pharmaceutical company, Novavax. He's also a graduate of Johns Hopkins University, like me. And just, very glad to have such diversity. So next on the panel, Chidi Ede. So, Chidi was one of my first friends. Chidi and Jeffrey, the videographer, one of my first friends when me and my family immigrated to Baltimore City. Me and Chidi, we went to Northwood Elementary School. Yes, mommy, that's Chidi. So, Northwood was Baltimore. Not to walk into the hallway, African Bully Scratcher. I remember I got beat up by these 3 girls during Halloween. Yes. I remember when I was living in Poppleton, I was just walking around. I see one of my friends from Northwood. He just told me he just got out of jail, and he's been in jail since 2019. So he missed all of COVID. He said, "Why does every girl have big back now?" I said, "Okay, you missed. A lot of things happened during COVID." But just glad to have Chidi here. Unfortunately, Chidi went to the other school. He went to Poly. But while he went to the other school, I don't know how you're sharing, but anyway, while he went to that school, he was in the Ingenuity program. And in Baltimore City, the education system gets a very bad rep. And some of it is true, some of it is false. Because I'm a product of the public school system. I went to Johns Hopkins. And Chidi is also a product of the public school system. He went to UMBC, and he's doing very well for himself. Chidi just got engaged. I'm sorry I spent a long time on this one, but I grew up with it. And when I was teaching at City College, I went back to teach English at City College. I was actually teaching, and this one girl, very smart girl, and I'm looking at her, she's looking at me, and it's his sister. So it's just very, and then Chidi's younger brother, Namdi, that was my little brother's best friend growing up. And so just very good to have him here and have him give insights on the tech industry. Next on the panel, and I'm very glad to have him here. This was a last minute request and call, but I would like to invite Annie Quincy over with. So Kweze is very important here. He is an engineer. He's worked for the Transit Authority for the states, and I believe also for DC. And I mean, I don't know if any of you have catch transit before, but in Baltimore it can be very, very slow. But at the same time, it's something beautiful. You can meet people from other lifestyles. You can read. Everybody's driving. You're driving and moving too fast. If you catch public transportation, you can read on the bus. Because a lot of you don't read unless it's on a phone screen, and that's propaganda. I better go back to literature and listen to Dr. Gweda Chukwu. And you know, I know Baltimore has big plans in terms of the GBC, the Greater Baltimore Committee. They want to make downtown fully walkable. So they're tired of people driving and traffic being congested. So they're trying to make Baltimore a more walkable city. You see all the bike lanes coming up. And these things, they are what you put together to have a well-functioning metropolis. Baltimore, back in the day, in the 1800s, used to compete with New York in population, in business and economy. And you know, Mayor Brandon Scott wants to have us, you know, back in that competition. And so it's really good to understand not just the viewpoints of an engineer, but how an engineer contributes to social science. And then last but not least on the panel, Chide Ebube. So where you're standing, right here, used to be a church. We are in southwest Baltimore, adjacent to the Popleton community. This highway right here, what is highway called? Martin Luther King, and it was created after the riots, after Martin Luther King died. And some say it was created to divide this area that was predominantly black following the Civil War from downtown. Because our lighter counterparts did not want to mix, especially between that time where there was a lot of protests, a lot of outcry for the violence, structural violence on Black lives. And University of Maryland pretty much runs the show in this part of Baltimore, because you know, East Baltimore, Mid Baltimore, you have Hopkins. Here, downtown to the west, you have University of Maryland. And this is called the Biopark District. So this building, 4MLK, was created to house juggernauts in the life sciences. And here today, we have someone in that space. And so, without further ado, as I did before, I will ask the panelists just to introduce themselves, tell us their origin story, and why they're here.
Go first. Yes, thanks. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kweze Okwe, and coming here really brings back a lot of memories for me. I grew up in Toronto. I was born there. My dad is from Anambra State, Ibuku, so I claim that fully. And my mom is from Barbados. So they met in Canada when they were going to university, and then had 3 children, my 2 sisters and myself. And just quickly, fast forward, I see everyone gathered here. I remember when I was a child, my parents and their friends started Igbo school on Saturdays in Toronto. We would go to like a high school, and you know, my aunties or uncles, other folks were in charge of different subjects, and they would teach us about our culture. So I was spoiled because I don't have that here in Baltimore. So I have to create it. I have to be intentional. Someone else, another one on the panel said being intentional. If we're not intentional, we're gonna lose all the gains that generations before us got us, right? So we have to be very intentional about what we teach our children. Didn't know that you went to Northwood Elementary School. That's where my kids go to school. I was on the PTA for 3 years, from 2020 to 2023. with a couple other parents. So, it's full circle. There's so many other connections that we probably don't even know that we have. So I just appreciate you for reaching out to me and inviting me to this event. So I want to learn Igbo so I can teach it to my kids. I want to take them back to Nigeria so that I can show them where their father is from and their grandfather and grandmother or great grandmother and everything. So yeah, I just really see the value in what we're doing and hope to do it more and figure out what I can do to contribute and learn from all the beautiful people, intelligent people here in this room.
So my name is Chichiyoke Bennett. I was born in Bauchi, Nigeria. Grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. Hopped on a plane and came here many moons ago. And for me, coming to the States was kind of interesting because I was deemed not African enough to be African because I sound like this, but I can code switch in a second. I sound like I'm in one village in Anambra State. You get it? But see, the thing was I came here and I will speak like this because I was trained to adapt and to fit in, which might be cultural to what the professor said. So I came here for one chief reason, that this will be my opportunity to claim my Igbo-ness. Because oftentimes in the rooms I sit as the one cherry in the whole bowl. It's me and myself alone. So it's a wonder to be in a room of just great Black people who happen to share ancestry with me in some shape or form. So I really love this. So this is my chance to be an authentic Igbo man, to claim my heritage, I'm always proud of who I am. So proud am I that I don't let them call me CJ, because I think it's a cop-out. If you can pronounce Swashniga, you will get this Chijoke name today. Will be till you get it. Sound it as you see it. So it's sort of my chance to tell this community I'm proudly one of you, and I'm glad to get this in any way I can and give back in any way I can, and that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for going down the code switching lane. I was figuring out how I was going to show up psychologically because we have to worry about this world. So it is very difficult for me to be amongst my people and not talk like I'm from Nigeria. So let's just do that. So my name is, I go by Jay, but my Igbo name is Ifeanyi. I go by Jay because of JJ Okocha, long story. I was, so from Imo State, right outside of Owerri, in Kedru local government area, but I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. We migrated here in 1995. I was in the 9th grade to Prince George's County, so I went to Laurel High School. And then I came to Baltimore for undergrad, UMBC, the Retrievers, a lot of UMBC pride in the room. Funny story, I went to UMBC, studied computer engineering and math for a couple of years. At some point, that transitioned into industrial psychology, long story. And my first career was in corporate recruiting for a number of years before I switched to entrepreneurship. As I joke, Igbo came calling. I had to go back to entrepreneurship. But it's, that's the academic and career, but the Igbo story along the way, it's one of those things where I don't have to think about it twice. In Lagos, we're true Igbos in Lagos. Every Christmas we go home, every Easter we go home. There's always some Igbo uncle knocking on our door, uninvited. There was always somebody leaving the village coming to Lagos for the first time, staying in our own flats for the next 6 months. And we lost 1 bedroom, just like that, with 5 children. So for us, the Igbo story is just part of who we are. Even when we came to the States, my parents eventually found their way to buying a house, and 1 bedroom inside our house always had somebody coming to America for the first time, 6 months at a time. So this idea that we are a people that give to each other, that support each other, has always been part of just my story. I was fortunate enough to go with my children, my son is right here, Chilike, my daughter right there, to Nigeria for the first time with them in July. And it was such a joy to watch them experience home. And Ime left, unfortunately, but I remember in preparation for them going home, it's about 2-3 years ago, I had Ime's brother take his drone to our village to go and do an aerial videography of our compound and all the farmland, because I knew I needed to show that video to them to prepare them for what they were going back home to. And that's from them, my nephews, my nieces, everybody. So for me, like this, what I yearn for them now is to be able to come to things like this. Because when we came to America, what kept the Igbo culture in us was going to MIPA meetings in Bitoli, Ikedru, People's Association. And being children, Christmas Eve, you are dancing till 1 a.m., wanting to go home, your parents don't want to leave. That's what I hope for them in this America, but that's the Igbo story.
Hi, my name is Chidi again. So, yeah, I know Chijoki from way back, like, probably like first grade or something. Brothers are friends, moms are friends. And I say that just because, like, it's important to have community. Because we were like the only 2 Nigerians growing up in Northwood. So, like, you know, growing up in Baltimore, you know, you have a lot of ignorant Americans, like, you know, insulting you, African booty scratcher, da-da-da-da-da. So just like going through the like education system was, I guess, different for me because like you feel like you're not just representing like a regular person because there's so few of us in the system. So you feel like you're representing like sometimes all of Nigeria and then sometimes all of Africa, you know. So I just remember I did the Ingenuity project. It was like a elevated like STEM, so they were really focused on teaching us advanced science, math, technology. Did that from middle school and high school. It was pretty rigorous. Like if you, I think if your final grade was below a B, they kicked you out the program. So like it was very like you couldn't slack off basically. So that was a lot, and then I went to Poly, the other school, for high school, same thing. And then I went to UMBC, shout out UMBC for college. Majored in computer science. Been working in the software world for a couple years now. And I'm very grateful for, because like I said, I grew up in Baltimore City, grew up around a lot of ignorant Americans, but I felt like my mom was always like putting emphasis on where I came from. So we went to, you know, Nigerian churches where she had like her Enugu State meetings. So she was like, she never really hung around like Americans like that. So she was always trying to like push the culture. I remember a few summers she was like, I'm not speaking English for like months. Like you have to learn. So like she was very I'm very fortunate for that she was always trying to push the culture and make sure that like, you know, I know where I came from and, you know, no going back. Grateful that he reached out just because like, you know, creating community, there's only so much you can get from the internet, there's only so much you can get from YouTube or ChatGPT, wherever you're doing research. So the best way to get more information on the culture is word of mouth, just networking. Especially working in the software world, like networking can go so far because it's not what you know, it's who you know. Like you can be the best qualified candidate, but if nobody knows who you are, you're not gonna go anywhere in the tech world. So like making connections is very big. Yeah, that's my story.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chidebube Chikezie, but you can call me Chidi. My story, I'm a venture studio manager with ETC, Emerging Technology Center, Baltimore, and we're a part of BDC, Baltimore Development Corporation, which is the economic arm for the city of Baltimore. And what I do is I help the companies in our venture get connected to the life science ecosystem. I do business development, program management, and just help them get connected to strategic advisors, strategic experts to help build their company and invest in their company. And yeah, it is in this building. And my story is that I grew up in Nigeria. I grew up in Port Harcourt. I'm a Port Harcourt girl. And I moved here 2014. And I moved to Georgia, not here, okay? I'm from Georgia. Very, very proud Georgia. And yeah, for me, being Igbo was just always a part of who I am. My mom loves, the Igbo culture. She's an Igbo teacher, actually. She's a teacher in general. And, as much as I speak a little, she was an English teacher, and then, she was like, okay, I'm not going to speak Igbo so that they get English properly. But now she regrets that, but it's okay because we're learning it a little bit, small. But yeah, and so for me, when I moved to Georgia, funny story is the name I bear at home is not Chidebube. Chidebube is my first name, and I actually knew it was my first name when I moved here. And they were trying to enroll me in school, and like Chidebube was on my birth certificate, and they asked me, do you want to be a Miracle or do you want to be a Chidebube? Because it's easier for you to say my English name than my Igbo name. And I was like, no, I'm bearing my Igbo name, it's my first name. I might as well bear it. And it also gave me that ideology that I'll be able to present myself without being at home. And so, if you know Georgia, you know that the Igbo community is very nicely knitted and very much Igbotic. And I think when I moved here, I was like, I don't know, the Igbo Marylanders are a lot more Americanized than in Georgia, but this is my exposure. This is my first exposure. So I'm glad to say that my narrative has changed because, I didn't know that there was something like this here, so yeah. And I always go back home every year since I graduated from college. I did my bachelor's in neuroscience at Georgia State University, and I did my master's in biotechnology at Georgetown University. So yeah, that's pretty much my story.
So I heard that some people are leaving and they did not eat. So first of all, if you're going to leave, please grab some food. Can we give a hand of applause for Chef Igbo? So we want you to know the food is there. So if you feel the hunger in your intestines, go and chop. But we're still going to come here and chop this information because they have a lot to say. Okay, so the next part, because I want to ask each of you individual questions, because it's a wealth of experience on this panel. I know some people here either want jobs, want more fulfillment in their jobs, or will benefit from having a bigger perspective on how things work. And so I will start, Anikweze. This is business, We are in the DMV. The DMV sits in the Mason-Dixon line. It's a big connector. Transit is huge. Right here, we are in the first railroad system in America, created right here to Ohio. So, tell us what you have been seeing. Tell us what's going on in the Transit Authority and the impetus for us to get engaged.
I'll start with. You guys hear me? All right. I'll start with just myself. I am a construction manager. I have a civil engineering background. I work at WSP, a consulting firm. I'm looking for project managers, so if you know anyone who has that background, talk to me. So I'll start there. And then another thing, just taking your question a little bit further, I think when it comes to transportation, everyone can see the differences between the transit system in Baltimore versus DC. There's a lot more rail, subway, bus, different forms of transportation, even bike share. There's a bigger bike share network down there. So to the political side of that, that's not just a business question, it's a political question, right? So if we demand as a region the same kind of infrastructure, then our leaders will understand that it's a priority for us. So there are a lot of different groups involved in advocacy for improving transportation in Baltimore. There's something called Transit Choices. It's a group that meets monthly, and they connect with different transit providers, politicians, about what transit should look like in Baltimore and what that vision should be. And that is one of the big economic issues in the city, is that it's hard for people to get from place to place without a car. The 30% of the households in Baltimore City do not own a car. So if you're looking at someone and you think, well, why can't they get ahead? Some of that is because if they're trying to get a job, say at Amazon or at the port, and they live in West Baltimore or East Baltimore, Northeast, Northwest, Southwest, wherever, it can be difficult for them to make that commute to work without a car and to be a reliable employee. And if you can't get to work on time, you'll get fired no matter what you do, right? So I think when it comes to building bridges with people in the city, if you're from here and have a good history of why transportation is the way it is, or if you're new and you don't understand, that's what big reason is. The political reasons for our transit system come from the history of racial segregation in this region. So as far as solutions for that, I think it behooves all of us to understand who our representatives are. So you can look on the internet and just type in your address, and you'll find out who your council person is, who your state senator is, your delegates, your U.S. House representatives, senators. And as someone who's not from America, I took it upon myself. Anywhere I moved, I lived in other places, in Ohio, in Georgia. I always went to the library and figured out like who's in charge, right? Like who cuts the checks, who takes our money and then spends it somewhere else, right? So if you, as a citizen, you have a right to reach out to those representatives and tell them what priorities you have. It may not be transportation, it may be biotech, it may be entrepreneurship, everyone's represented at this table. And I think we can basically write down who those representatives are, find out what they're passionate about, and try to tie that back to, hey, I'm passionate about this, I elect you. So reprioritize your priorities to what I want to see change in this city, for my schools, whatever lane you want to go into. Quickly on the schools piece, transportation was something that I used as a PTA president to improve the area around my child's school. They recently spent $60 million to build a new school there. So the old Northwood is not the same as the new Northwood now. Yeah, and one of the big issues on Loch Raven Boulevard is there are a lot of crashes. People drive fast, people drive crazy around here. I don't know what it is about Maryland drivers. They're just not good. I live here, but I don't consider myself a bad driver. But my wife was driving near the school and she saw a crash happen. And she didn't get hurt, she wasn't involved, but we took it upon ourselves as a PTA to advocate to our council member, Brian Dorsey, and Baltimore City Department of Transportation and say, we needed some cameras here, we need better safety improvements here. And I, as a transportation engineer, was able to get data from the state and map it onto a map and show them how many incidents happened here in the past 5 years. So using our advocacy as parents, as constituents, we were able to get speed cameras installed in front of the school in about 2 years from that. So I guess what I'm trying to demonstrate is you can take any issue that you want to improve, take it to your elected officials, take it to the departments in the city or state that are in charge of it, and basically tell them what you want to do and you can do it. Like there really are no barriers, and I think that comes from being Igbo. We don't take no. If someone tells us no, we go over here until we hear a yes, or we just make it a yes for ourselves. So you can use that same ingenuity, same tenacity to change the things that you want to see changed. in your environment?
Annie Quincy said he's hiring for project manager. I just want to repeat that. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. So, Uncle Chijoke, you're a man of faith. Well. But you're also a man of science. So, one, I want you to just, talk to us, really tell us about what you do and how the two worlds you carry intermix, and what are the ways in which they amplify each other. Because, we're in society right now where they're trying to make a split. They're trying to have science as a god and religion as a space that debunks science. So talk to us. That's all I have to say.
Wow. Okay. The intersection of my faith and my science is pivotal to my identity. A few people in this room know me, and they know me as both. I don't push it down your throat that I'm a Christian, that I exhibit values that will make you question. Why do you do the things you do? There's something different about you. And I'm not doing that to be super righteous or to make people feel bad. This is my truth. This is how I live the life I choose to live. I have to make conscious choices at every point to show up as my authentic self, which is a Christian scientist, a Christian physician in every room I approach. So I walk into certain conversations and automatically the language has to shift. Why? I'm in the room now. You can't talk that mess anymore. I'm in the room, and I have never come at them to tell them don't do it. Over time, with interaction, it has hit them. These are his values. This is who he is. We won't pull him to our side. So if we won't do that, let's at least respect him. I'm not afraid to be the one person on my team at any point. As long as I believe what I'm doing is correct, I will stay there. And I want to shout out the man in the green shirt. I have incredible respect for you. I know this is going to shock him to you. You went to med school and you're doing what you do. Kudos to you. Don't be afraid to be the only one doing what you do. It's in your DNA. It's part of who you are as an Igbo person. You can stand alone. Don't be afraid of the path less traveled. Don't be afraid to be criticized. Just know who you are. Believe who you are. So what I do on my day-to-day is I am probably in the most unpopular field right now in Trump's America. I'm a vaccinologist. RFK Jr. is directly opposed to me in what I do. Because the things he says are not factually based on the data I do every day. So I run global clinical trials. I'm talking from latitude to latitude. I mean, every continent. I'm doing studies. I'm doing vaccine studies around the world, globally. Pause. Can I say this part? The one continent that is loudly missing in the conversation is our dear African continent. And when we talk about Africa, everybody runs to the south. It's always South Africa. You know why? They have infrastructure and they have advocacy. We can, as Nigerians, begin to push that sort of needle to have us considered in that space. But again, don't be afraid to be the different person in the room. Like, speak your truth. My faith tells me that I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm saving lives, I'm doing the best I can as a scientist, that I'm not afraid to broach those sort of difficult conversations, because there is really no dichotomy, as far as I see it, between faith and science. Both of them work really well. This is the irony. Many of science's founding fathers were Christians. Many were clergy. And I think someone here said it, well, I think it was Delhi, that if you don't remember your past, you will oftentimes stumble in the future. This division, and Prof, you said it so well, bless your heart for what you said there. Because what they do is they begin to divide us. They pit us against ourselves. Science versus faith. There is no versus there. We can work this thing together. So my thing is to be that guy who does both. And I try to do it excellently. And that's what gives you the muscle you need in those rooms. Because nobody can see on my face Igboland. But they can tell from your name and the quality of work you do, I want to talk to this guy. So I get handpicked to go to conferences, to speak to leaders of nations. I get handpicked, not because I'm the one who knows the most, because every time I bring myself, I am the best version of me you will ever get. So I'll say this to us, whatever it is you're straddling, whatever it is you're overseeing, your best marker is the quality of work that you do. That's your best friend. That people want to talk to you because of what you do and how you do it and how well you do it. And that allows you to have the conversation. Well, these are my values. This is where I come from. This is my origin story. And then you become this, what I tease myself as a vaccine evangelist. Because that's sort of what I do. I try to tell the truth about my science, but also with my faith. Those two things to me are pivotal to my life story.
So there's an organization called the GBC. It stands for the Greater Baltimore Community. And they started in the early 1900s. And they are the civic engagement arm for the private sector. And so on the board of the GBC sits like the president of Johns Hopkins, Ron Daniels, the president of University of Maryland Medical System, Mohan Santa. Then you have the partners from A.R. St. Gross. A.R. St. Gross is an architecture firm that they built Harvard, they built MIT, they built other well-known Ivy League institutions across the US. And they've also built Baltimore City College High School and lots of Baltimore. So in pretty much in sum, the GBC, they drive everything that happens in the city, the way we move, the way we walk, where we go to eat, everything like that. And they have on their master plan entrepreneurship. The one thing Baltimore's been known for is we have talent in this city. Back when we were originally a port city, they created the steamboats. Engineers created the steamboats, and it set Baltimore apart, increasing the amount of trade and engagements in commerce, for this early Baltimore town. And here today in the 21st century, we have high unemployment, we have high crime, but this city is known for innovation and known for people. And so Jay has a lot on his boats. And so, I just want to be able to talk to Jay for him to tell us how he picks his problem apart to attack. And where is there an in for lots of us, because many of us here are entrepreneurs. So where is there an in? And Jay, how do you attack this big issue?
Okay, so just to be clear, I run two organizations, Innovation Works and Ignite Capital. We support entrepreneurs in Baltimore City through advisory, coaching, and then the Ignite Capital side invests capital into those businesses. For somebody without a finance degree, I run an investment fund. For somebody without a business degree, I coach entrepreneurs, go figure. So let me just maybe mention a few more things. So it kind of gives you the way I see the tackling of the world, and then I can answer questions in private conversations later. I'm a big fan of history because we have to know where we've come from, what we've been able to accomplish, to know what is possible in the future. So I chair the board of the Baltimore Museum of Industry because it is my way of really deep and dig into the roots of Baltimore City and where we've come from an economic standpoint. Looking to the future, I'm a professor at Loyola University. I teach entrepreneurship courses, investing courses, because I want to help inspire. But then my day job is the present. And I'm gonna try to tie this back to Nigeria too, Igboland also. So one thing we recognize if we look at the history is that Baltimore's economy as we see it today is never by mistake, it's by design. For all the people who cannot earn a living, it didn't happen by mistake. It's not because they chose not to go to school, it's not because they chose they didn't want to work, it is because of decisions that were made to further enslave certain people to allow others to advance. That's just a system. You refer to it in the transportation sector. It's the same thing everywhere. Finance, entrepreneurship, business, everything. So for us to think about economic development in a way that allows for all to be able to participate, we really, really have to reverse engineer how we got here to begin with. One of the creative spaces I love is how we reverse engineer finance and the relationship we've tied ourselves to money. And as Igbo people, we know we have a relationship with money in the stories we tell ourselves about money. And it is no different than how people here tell stories about money. And unfortunately, a lot of times we've learned from them because of they colonized us. And our behaviors about money is actually very much resemblance of how people here think about money in a way that is not helpful, to be honest with you. So entrepreneurship in Baltimore is a thriving space. There are way too many entrepreneurs. Many should not be entrepreneurs, to be honest with you. It's just what it is. Everybody can wake up every day and think of a problem. We can all decide we want to go solve that problem, but not everybody's going to be able to make it in solving that problem. It requires something completely different. My job every day is to help convince people when they should go forward, when they should step to the side and get a job, right? Because unfortunately, we only have a limited time on this planet. And if you want to make a big impact, you have to know what your God-given gifts are and use that. And not everyone is designed to run a business, unfortunately. And that's okay. I think I'm one of those people too. That's why I advise other people, and I don't do it, right? But I want to stay on this track of money because I think that's where I've learned some of the greatest lessons, because it's the greatest lever, and I just want to use that to tie back home too, because something I've been thinking about a lot. I'm in the field of impact investing, which means you want to use your capital that you didn't necessarily earn by your own doing. God gave you the opportunity to go to school, to learn something, to pick up a skill, and you all owe something back, because unfortunately when that day comes, you can't take that money with you. So the question is, how do you use the money to make the greatest impact while you are here? And that is an area that is so against everything capitalism. Capitalism is about hoarding. And if we think about Igbo culture, we understand when we see hoarding. Because I've had to face that in my own family. When we think about relationship to money, we come to America, we make our money as engineers. The first thing we go do in villages do what? We build a big house. A big house with 15 bedrooms that we will sleep in once every 3 years. Meanwhile, the road to the house, jaga jaga. Our own family members next door, I still go into the bathroom in the backyard. We have to reimagine how we think about the resources that we have. Not just that, oh, then we go, and if we do better, we say, family, oh, charity begins at home, so let me help my cousin and my uncle and this person first. But that kindred family, that's still next door, you know, saying that that's their own business. But we try to claim that we are a communal society. To what extent? That is what I've been wrestling with lately. Because to be honest with you, economic development here we can contribute all we want, and we should, because we owe the place where we are, a bit of us. But if we're gonna claim that we are of home too, then the East, Igboland, has a lot to gain from us and what we're learning from here. And that's one thing I'm struggling with, because we have some of the most rich resources in the East. Yet, we let the Chinese people come and dig our wells, we let them come and farm our lands because we all ran away to come and build big house. Those are the things I'm struggling with, because a lot of the entrepreneurial ingenuity we are picking up here, we have so much to advance Igboland back home. Not Lagos, not Abuja. We have so much natural resources back in our own backyard that we've all left behind. That really, we should be asking ourselves, where is the entrepreneurship opportunity there? How do we use those opportunities to lift our kindreds? So it's not the only Christmas time they'll get Western Union remittance from us. They have to be able to make their own money at some point, so they can leave us alone and stop calling us for school fees every 2 weeks. I mean, we have to help them earn, and that will happen through entrepreneurship, which is one of the greatest gifts God gave Igbo people. I'll stop there.